what needed to happen. The borrower informed the bank, inform the appropriate authorities in compliance with the local regulations, and secure the safety of workers and the public that may have been involved in the incident and provide immediate care. That's the initial communication as soon as the incident happened. And the bank, by its side, advised the borrower if they are not already aware and launch the hazard toolkit. So the process starts with this initial communication, and if any member of the bank is involved, there is also an internal process in the bank to notify the responsible person. What the initial communication has to have to respond a set of questions to provide the bank and the authorities involved with the salient information on the incident. So what was the incident, what happened, who was involved, when and where the incident occurred, what is the source of information, how did you find about the incident, is there any conflicting version about the incident. It's quite normal when we have an incident, we have two different parts that have a conflicting version. Any particular circumstances for the incident is still ongoing, is it contained? Environmental incident can happen, so we are not only speaking about occupational health and safety incident, but also environmental incident and social incident. So if there was any loss of life, any severe harm involved, how serious was, is it being addressed, and so on and so forth. So all this set of questions helps in guiding what information is needed in the initial communication. The second step is the classification, and basically is to assess how the incident is severe. The assessment of the classification is done by the bank according to the initial communication and the initial information that has been given, so that the environmental and social specialist assigned to the particular project classifies the incident in terms of severity, following an incident classification guide that helps in classifying the incident. And the borrower provides information and whatever information is needed to help the assessment of this initial classification. We have some example, as I was mentioning, we are speaking about environmental, social, and occupational health and safety incident that may have different level of classification. Here there are the three main that are used. An indicative incident, a serious incident, and a severe incident. Just take some example from here. An indicative incident can be the poor quality or delayed site restoration and rehabilitation. An indicative social incident may be minor instances of inappropriate behavior and of security forces or contractor personnel, or minor job injuries. We go further to serious incidents, so we can have overexploitation of natural resources. We can have cases of mistreatment of communities or vulnerable groups by project workers or security forces. And we can also have absence of a health and safety plan and training procedures. We go to the most serious classification, the severe, when we have a major river contamination causing dissemination of fish population or aquatic resources. We can have forced eviction or resettlement of communities without due process of compensation, or we can have fatalities in projects. Following the classification, we go further in the process, and we see the notification. So who need to know about the incidents? The first notification is done by is to notify the bank management according to the severity of the incident. So the borrower provides a report on the incident, and the procedure or the requirement on how to deal and how to prepare this report should be included in the operating manual. So it's always good to double check in the operating manual if the procedure on how to report incidents are included in the project documentation. And also the contractor should report any incident to the borrower. Having an incident register at site is something that helps in tracking all the incidents that happen and promptly notifying the bank. This notification comes usually within 48 hours from the incident. So this incident report is received by the bank within 44 hours, internally circulated in the bank. Further communication will continue between the borrower and the bank itself. So after the incident report, there is an actual investigation. So we go further deep in understanding what are the causes of the incident. So we pass the 44 hours, we move further, and the main thing here is the root cause analysis, which is our main analysis to investigate what's behind the incident. First thing is to understand the facts on the ground. So there may be, if the incident is severe or serious, a bank mission to understand better what happened on the ground. And there are communication between the bank and the borrower in providing additional details and understanding and facilitating the incident site visit. The RCA, the root cause analysis, is prepared by the borrower, or the borrower cause that the contractor undertake the root cause analysis to understand what are the causes of the incident. The RCA is based on the existing country processes, or in absence or weak experience in managing this type of issues. Consultants are also taken on board and recruited by the contractor. The root cause analysis is funded by the contractor, and the bank can provide further support, can provide terms of reference for the consultants to undertake the root cause analysis. And further discuss with the borrower what are the plan of action taken and further required to define the remedial measures according to the finding of the root cause analysis. Further, that the bank receives the root cause analysis, there are discussion and potential facilitation of additional site visit. The root cause analysis is usually received by 10 days after the incident. So we have an incident report by 48 hours and the root cause analysis by 10 days of the accident. And once the root cause analysis has been reviewed, comments has been addressed, the bank will complete an aide memoir reflecting the findings of the root cause analysis and the findings of the supervision mission that has been developed. So there could also be an interim implementation status and results report associated to the incident that the bank have undertook. So just to recap the main aspects, the root cause analysis determines the underlying causes of the incident, what's behind, what have caused the incident. Is conducted by the borrower or the contractor as soon as a severe incident occurs. There is the use of the borrower systems to develop the root cause analysis when these are available and adequate. And it aims to identify legal, corrective, and preventive measures. The exert includes a sample of the tour of the root canal analysis and also tours for the experts that may be required. There is, in the toolkit, there is a set of information, useful, templates, guidance that is available for further information. A particular case on gender-based violence and sexual exploitation and abuse. Under no circumstances the bank or the borrower should undertake an independent investigation of an incident on gender-based violence and sexual exploitation and abuse, while the understanding of the case should only involve where and to whom the incident was reported, and what type of incident has been reported, and whether a person has experienced an alleged incident and was referred to the appropriate services. Following incident on gender-based violence and sexual exploitation will follow a good practice note that is available and can provide further guidance. So just to separate the two matters here. After that, we have root cause analysis. We move further, and we develop a standards corrective action plan. In the plan is aimed to design what are the actions, what are the responsibilities, the timelines for implementation, and the monitoring plan. The action plan is prepared by the borrower and reviewed and supported with the help of the bank to agree to an appropriate action plan to remediate the incident consequences and also the causes. So the action plan is based on the findings of the root cause analysis. It provides immediate near-term actions, such as stop of works, secure the site, provide medical care, counseling, pain compensation, etc. So a set of actions that can be done in the immediate period. Also action that can go further in the medium term, such as developing documentation, enforcing contracts, improve procedures, training, and ensure that the qualified staff is on site. And also high-level monitoring and ongoing evaluation. So the action plan will contain a different set of measures to be undertaken depending on this priority. The bank will advise the borrower on the action plan, will be agree on it, will provide support and supervision on the implementation. A final step, and here we arrive at the end of the presentation, is the follow-up. So we have going back an incident report that have provided inputs to the root cause analysis. The root cause analysis has provided inputs to the action plan, and now we follow up and we implement the action plan. The borrower is the main actor for implementing the action plan, to monitoring the progress, and to report back to the bank on its implementation. The bank on its side will supervise and will provide ongoing support on the implementation of the action plan. According to the bank system, there will be site visits, supervision site visit to verify and provide more hands-on support on the implementation of the action plan. The risk rating on the project may be also updated due to the incident findings, monitoring, and when all the action has been completed, an after-action memo will be prepared summarizing the incident, the root cause analysis, finding, and the agreed action. So this is very shortly how the exert work. We have material, we have further guidance on how to deal when an incident happens. So feel free to be in contact with us to understand better what to do when an incident happens. When I go to field and we revise the project documentation and we ask for incident register, sometimes I find them empty, like that no incident have happened. I believe that in a construction site, incidents are normal. It's something that happens, and it's good to have a consistent manner on how to deal with them. So the ESIRT is here to help both the bank and the borrower to have a direct line of communication, but also to know who and how to deal with this type of incident. So I'm open for any questions that you may have, qualification, and again, you can reach out to us to gather any further information. I hope the presentation will also shared maybe with everyone, and I see a first question coming there.
Thank you very much for this good presentation. To me, it's an eye-opener. Two things. One, as we run, I think this is a new thing. I don't know whether it's a new thing, whether it's a proposal. I don't know whether it has been done before. But in the project that I have been fully participating in, which I understand very well, I don't see this framework, this provision. That is number one. Number two, in this provision, since that such certain projects do not have this provision, in case something happens, I'm seeing the borrower being being the one to meet the cost of recovery or whatever it is, the compensation. Why isn't the bank, you, the World Bank, why don't you have also a provision, either insurance or whatever it is, for each loan that you give out? Three. I want to understand the scope of this. When we talk about this, our heads run to construction projects. Our heads run to... Now, in our project, that is the Agriculture Cluster Development Project by the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. You saw when you asked, are there cases that have happened? Yes, there are cases that have happened, but our environment and social safeguards may not have really interested themselves in because they didn't know the scope. We had an e-voucher management agency who runs the e-voucher, the system through which we get inputs. But under that agency, we have employees. We have people who work. Some work with government of Uganda. They are part of us. They are called extension officers. Others are community development officers. Number two are employees of the contractor who are also providing service. So one case was the employee of the contractor, while he was mobilizing our farmers of the project of government of Uganda to enroll and do that, he lost a leg through an accident. So I was there seeing people contributing 1,000, 2,000, and they didn't raise even 50,000. But the boy lost the accident even beyond hours. He was a very active boy in Rwanda, in Kabare district. So it couldn't be that he was working beyond time, but he could have worked within the time, but the distance being far from where he was staying, he had an accident with a trailer and he was on a motorcycle. Another one was a total loss. There are two total loss. One was an extension officer in the east. That one died completely when he was coming from the field, and for the same work. Another one was a community development officer, died for the same project work in the other side, in Kamwenge, the other side. Who compensates them? This framework, for us as government, you just look at it as, okay, maybe the boy was hustling. That was his life. You get. But I'm appreciating this. That if it is within the confines of providing for such cases, and an investigation is done, and really this person spent the whole day mobilizing farmers who are going to absorb this money and put us in another line, from a red line to a green yellow, then it should be compensated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, and the question were noted and very, very clear. Just to provide some quick answer to them, the ESIR, the toolkit, is applicable. It is not a new thing. It's been developed by the bank in the past period and applies both to projects that apply the old safeguards and the new safeguards. So it's applicable and actually help for the implementation of each project. So that's why it's also good to have them these reporting and communication requirements within the contracts that are established in projects, but also within the legal agreements with the contractor to be notified as promptly as soon as this incident happen. In the presentation, you've seen not much on the compensation, but who is responsible to develop the root cause analysis. So the contractor and the borrower develop the root cause analysis. When we go to compensation, we are already entering the action as it is set of the action plans. There are many actions. I believe that compensation is not the only one. There is a support that can be given to the family, to the community. There are many manners of providing compensation. The bank itself has also its internal procedures to come in to resolve any conflicts and to find a solution when we go through a compensation. But this case by case. I mean, it's not standardized, and according to the severity of the project, the responsibilities. I mean, these are the discussion and the agreements that come with the action plans. It's good also to hear from the experiences you had.
I have the mic here.
And okay, you have already the microphone. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the presentation. Mine is looking at the tool. Does this tool have what we call risk analysis or mapping that would definitely inform the level of risk in terms of the people who are probably on the project, so that at the end of the day, when you come to do a root cause analysis, you're probably anchoring your questions based on the risk analysis and mapping that was done prior to the project starting. And when you're doing this is another version of the question, is that do you do what we call probably a death audit in case somebody has died? Do you do a death audit in that case to see that the actual cause of the death is actually related to the particular present situation? For example, when you're doing maybe it's environment and probably somebody has been intoxicated or food poisoned along the way, how do you get to that nitty-gritty? Do you only use the verbal autopsies or community autopsies and go pathological, what we call the postmortems? Do you do those things as part of this analysis, root cause analysis? That's the background I'm coming from, so you may excuse me for that. So the other issue is if it is the issues to do with maybe the audit report has come, death audit report has come, and maybe the cause is not directly related to the work the person is doing. How do you go about that then?
Okay. So just to respond to the first question, having the mapping and the background context that is before the incident is very important, is analyzed very in depth in this kind of assessment. So it's not looking at the immediate reason of having the accident. I mean, if a person slept, they sleep or fall from height, but also understanding what brings to that fatality. That's basically to address what can be systemic issues and to to prevent the same accident to repeat or similar accident to happen again in similar situations. So the background and the mapping is a central part of the risk assessment or the root case analysis. The second question was about
Does the analysis, the root cause analysis, involve goes to the level of maybe death audits?
Okay. Let's say that the bank does not overlap with the function of the legal authorities or a tribunal. Okay. So when there is a tribunal case, a legal case, lawyers, and people involved, to do an investigation, the banks, as another function, no, is to understand what are the causes, and to report and to document how these processes are being carried out. But can have external consultant coming in, can suggest the borrower to have a specialist in a certain matter to go deeper in a certain in a specific matter. Okay, but is not going to have the legal case on the aspect itself.
Maybe lastly, can we have a uniform, what we call maybe incident integrated, maybe surveillance system of that kind of thing for the entire projects under the World Bank? We would call, I'm calling it integrated incident surveillance and response system, something like that.
Yes, that would be actually what this tool
so that
is
at the end of the day, any report, any incident occurs, it is reported through a system and it's able to be tracked and able to see and where it has been reported and that kind of thing.
Yes, and that's a sure consistency now in this approach. Of course, these are guidelines, and then the specific actions and details can be adjusted according to the needs of the borrower. The important thing here is that we are speaking about consistency and how the reporting system, the documentation, and ground rules are developed to go from an incident to an actual solution, a remediation of the incident itself.
Okay.
Okay, we have many hands. Who was first? And maybe also have my colleagues if they want to step in, Brenda and Jimena as well.
Okay, so just drawing experience from Ministry of Agriculture, specifically the Agriculture Cluster Development Project. As a ministry, we developed a system, an e-extension services system, to be able to track performance of extension workers and how they're actually performing. So in this system, we have an electronic GRM system to be able to track and report grievances. So my question is it possible to merge this into the eGRM, or should this be separate? Because we have a module there under incident, but it's not this detailed. Thank you.
Brenda or Jimena, you want to check some?
Thank you, Barbara. So the ESAT is a reporting mechanism. What, like Andrea said, when an incident happens on a project, so that we consistently, across all projects funded by the bank, we manage them in the same way. So the role of the bank is not to investigate. The first step, the key important step, when an incident happens, maybe we don't have so many details, the first important step is communication, that initial communication. Don't first try to investigate, find root cause analysis, no. Communication, first communication is key. So that is that. So when we come to projects, we find, because I know UNRWA, even KIDIP, had their own incident reporting mechanism. So what we did is to ensure that in terms of the reporting timelines and what is required to be done, they harmonize between the two systems, what is required by the bank and their existing system. So it's not to replace, but as long as it matches, especially in terms of what needs to be done and the reporting timelines. Now then, now that I have the mic, I can, an opportunity now to link this, we're talking about GRM, link this to GRM. Andrea talked about that step of root cause analysis. So the point of root cause analysis is not really to apportion blame, but to find causes so as to prevent reoccurrence of that incident. So sometimes you find that maybe it's the GRM is not functioning. Maybe workers have been reporting that we don't have PPE, management does not respond. Don't have PPE, does not respond. So it's in that grievance register, it's there, but there is no response. Then until an incident happens, maybe a worker is injured. So now when you do the root cause analysis, then you find that, no, we have a GRM, these workers have been reporting, but management has not been responding. So then now in the safeguards corrective action plan, now you know you need to change that. Then someone talked about risk assessment. So many times in the root cause analysis, you find that maybe you have not updated your risk assessment in a while. Because situations change on ground. They did a risk assessment before the work started, but situation has changed on ground, and then you find that that is an action that's recommended after a root cause analysis, that the risk assessment needs to be updated. So now that, I just wanted to highlight that link with now GRM. So it's not, we're not totally separate from what we are talking about today. There is that link. Thank you. Barbara, I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for that informative presentation. My name is Danson. I work with the Ministry of Health. When it comes to incident reporting, the biggest challenge we've been facing are the contractors at times who fear to report, in the pretext that when they report, probably maybe the contract, since it's World Bank, it might be suspended or terminated. And an accident happens, you go on site on a monthly basis, you never get to know until maybe 3-4 months down the road, and out of curiosity you ask within the neighborhood, and then you discover that 3 months ago there was a serious accident that was never reported. And when you discover that, now it becomes a little bit challenging now to go back and look at the root cause analysis. You find that even the people who were there managing HSC had already been suspended or maybe terminated. It becomes a little bit confusing there. So I wanted to inquire from other projects, how do you handle such scenarios? Because myself and Douglas recently we faced one of such a challenge where we had to work backwards, like 6 months back, to trace what exactly happened and why wasn't it reported. And of course, I'm very sure the bank somewhere blamed us, but even us, we had no idea. Even the supervising consultant, we also blamed him. Where were you? Where was your clerk of works? And even himself didn't have. So it's a bit confusing and challenging. So I want to learn from other projects that have had, especially some of these incidences, near fatal. How do you get to know? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I got interested in the comments from my other colleagues. One of my colleagues was talking about death audit and the aspects of where we begin to do this risk assessment. Probably we can share, because I know in this meeting we have come also to learn and unlearn, as we had mentioned. But I think some of these things, especially when it comes to this risk assessment, incidences are not things that you plan, but in the risk assessment you anticipate that probably this could happen. And that's why we have a whole range of other issues that we need to look at. Not only the grievance redress mechanism, but also other things on site, like having daily toolbox talks and so on. But this should have come right away from the anticipated, the potential risks that you captured during the studies, the Asia studies, what you captured in the contractor's ESMP, and make sure that some of these things come out. So when they come out, they should be correlating very well with the contract documents.
And one of the challenges in regard to some of the questions that came up is that if you did not embed some of these things within the contract documents, where the contractor has an obligation to make sure that all the project workers are insured, and in case of such accidents or incidences, there's a fallback position where we can have compensation, where we can have medical assistance and things like that. It becomes easier when all these are integrated. Now, the reporting tools of different projects and MDAs can be harmonized with already some of the things that are, I don't want to say universal, but which are cross-cutting, like Brenda has said. So we need to capture them from that incidence so that you are sure that if something happens, we can do a root cause analysis, but we have a fallback position to ensure that we manage within the systems that we've had right away from the framework that you have, the tools that you're using to implement and ensure that you're managing risk, environmental and social risks. Then we can embed those into our action plan and make sure that we are safe to go. I was here pondering about the death audit that my colleague was talking about, whether that comes in as a post-mortem. You can run up to a post-mortem. For instance, when we were handling one of the incidences that we had, the insurance company had to actually do their own assessment, to use their own health facilities that they think these are the ones that we want to use. And you allow that process to go. So if it involves police, allow that process to go through police and get the results. If it involves going through a post-mortem, then allow that process, but document all through the whole process and ensure that you capture all this information that is required for you to come up with a very good root cause analysis. Thank you very much.
Okay, there are some other questions, but also wanted to have a look at the time that we have available. I think that a lot of these comments have to say with the blame culture, no, that we want to avoid. It's not about the number of incidents that you are having in a project. It's about how incidents are solved and what lesson you can learn from those. Wanted to have a question?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Tumsime Wycliffe Masense, and I work with USRA. Mine is about how really we wish to have the reporting come through within 48 hours. But just like one colleague said, whenever we have an incident on a project, the first thing that comes to the mind of the contractor or anyone around the project is to protect the project from exposing the accident that has happened. I'll give an example of a few shortly. Accidents, one of which I saw with my eyes while I was on site, is the crusher, the quarry. We all appreciate the quarry is one of the most risky areas to work at. And here was a casual. We understand the people working the quarries are casuals, and they have less knowledge about safety. And he was ordered to go down and remove stones. And actually the quarry crushed him. He got a tag in and locked in, and it crushed him. Before he knew it, he was missed meat up the other side, flying. And then that's until when we had somebody stop the crusher. And this is the guy who had gone. And then so I was lucky that I was on site, and there was nothing they could do apart from me, myself, having it go all through. But the team on ground, it was the Chinese, of course. They didn't want for the issue to do what? To go through. I was like, no, but we've lost a life. And this has happened on several projects of ours. So how do we make sure that starting from the grassroots, we have the incidents come through? Like, do we have, like maybe the bank or the authority have our posters of numbers put there? Like maybe in case of an accident, please report it through on the earliest, before it comes through the supervisor, then the project manager, then the RE, Like, as in, there's a lot of bureaucracy. Some information can be lost there. And then also, maybe from the bank side, then we have payment for environment and social safeguards tagged to compliance, like maybe through monthly reports, and then until we have those reviews come through, and then we find a way of tagging compliance to payment. Because most of our contracts are generic, and you find that ESHS, first of all, ESHS teams are seen on projects as problems. Like the Chinese look at us as problems, as in we don't make money, we are a spending venture, we're just spending. So if we tag that, and then maybe also have grassroots communication come through, then we can be able to tackle accidents from as early as possible, or even avoid them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this. These are two very important points. Timing and, okay, also about the payment. Okay, timing, you've seen there is a suggested evolution of events. So we have the initial notification, the 44 hours report, and the RCA, which is coming with 10 days. The idea is, as sooner, let's say, you notify the bank, you have extra support, okay, to do the analysis. So that's the main thing. I understand contractors may want to protect, but actually the bank is informed and will provide support to the borrower and to the contractor on how to find solutions, remedial actions, and build together an action plan. That's the main thing. And learn together from the incident. On payments, another aspect that I think is very important is about the insurances that need to be vinculated to the contractors. So many times ago, to see projects and insurances for worker, for third-party liability when an incident also involved members of the public are not there. These are also a procurement aspect when you have to deal with the contract with the contractors to ask for insurances that are a first barrier when an incident happens, and then compensation measures that can be further discussed as additional action. Don't know if you want to add anything else, maybe Jimena?
Thank you, Andrea. So I have been involved in fatalities, in a lot of accidents, and let me tell you just one story. Before working for these banks, I worked for a project in my country, Bolivia, from Shell, the oil and gas company. If you had a fatality in that project, the manager had to go to London and report. You had a second fatality in the same project, the manager had to go back to London and report. The third fatality, the manager had to take his or her suitcases because he was fired. That is how serious some companies take fatalities and accidents. Because it can happen once, but you should learn from that. You should have action plans. You should have control barriers so it will not happen again. Now, at the bank, if a fatality happens, it's not Brenda, it's not Christine, it's not the TTL of the project who reports the fatality. It is the country director. So it is also managed at that level because every life is important. We do not want projects financed by the bank harming people. That's why we ask for all these plans. So there has to be a risk analysis. This activity, what kind of risks? So what do you need? Personal protective equipment, what else? All of that. Because we all should try to avoid fatalities. We want everybody to go back home to their families, right? I understand that some people want to hide that because you look like you didn't do something about it, maybe. I mean, even in my family, my daughter, if she breaks something, she will hide it. She doesn't want me to know about it. It is normal, it is natural. So how do you overcome that? Training, 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 induction, telling them it is better to report because we can fix it. We can put more guidance. We can ask for more budget, have more supervision, do something about it. But if you don't know of a problem, how can you solve it? You cannot. So that's why it's important, the training. Now, also to supervise, to go quite often to the field. If nobody has gone in 6 months, of course, people will relax there and you will not know what's happening. But training is very important, and also to convey the message that it is okay if something happens. It can happen once, maybe twice, but it should not happen 3 times. No? So give the space that people can report. And why is important to report? It is for your project reputation, for Uganda, and also for the bank, because a picture now with a cell phone, social media, everybody knows, and they will say, ooh, that project, ooh, that happened. So we are aware of that, and we can act upon. We are in the field. We should be the first one knowing that. So that's why it's also important to report. But also, I don't know how many of you have worked on occupational health and safety. But you know, you can have one near miss, so an almost accident, another near miss. But after 10 near misses, I think that you have one accident. And after 10 minor accidents, you will get a fatality. It's math. It happens that way. So if we don't solve the near misses or the minor accidents, we will get the fatality. So that's why we have to work on all these issues. It is important. We want everybody to go home. We want every family to have their father still there. No? We always have to remember that. We have to protect the people that are also involved in our projects. So.
Thank you so much. We have one more. You are looking at the time, right? Last one.
Thank you so much. My name is Charles Sotim from Ministry of Lands. I'll just give a few compliments, but I wanted to maybe share and find out. You said the root cause analysis could be tasked on the contractor or the borrower. But you have had these submissions from the colleagues where the contractor is somebody who is trying to conceal and what? He doesn't want that part of him, that non-compliant part of him to be what? To be known. Now, when you set the contractor's team to do what? A root cause analysis, most of this information may tend to be what? To be lost, and we shall not get to know where is the what? Where is the real loophole? But regarding all these submissions that colleagues have made, I was actually feeling a bit bad when the colleague said one officer, and then the CDO, and then somebody lost a leg, but they were not compensated. So it goes to what the other colleague said, we need to have this factored in the contract. When you have an insurance cover for all the workers, that is where they benefit. Because we have done it, and then take on the whole exercise, like from the death, handle the death, burial arrangements, and then compensate that person for 60 months of wages based on his what? On his monthly income, because that is what the Workers' Compensation Act provides. If you die, you're eligible for 60 months of what? Of wages. If you lose a leg, there is a fraction. If you lose an eye, a hand, there is a fraction. That is in the what? In the Workers' Compensation Act. So maybe we need to what? We need to get into that. But I also want to compliment what Madame from Bolivia said. This issue of induction, induction of the workers is very pertinent, and it should come at the onset of works. Now, we have had scenarios where the workers, when they see their employers, the contractors, and the consultants are not helpful, they will call the ministry direct and say, this and this is happening. This and this, how can you help us? Then now you go back to the contractor because you have known where the problem is. But otherwise, these guys are being suppressed and they don't want all those loopholes to what? To come over. And then affirmative action. We lost one person who made a fundamental mistake, and then we had 2 serious injuries. And the mistake was made by one of the logistics admin. There was a coaster which was supposed to be transporting workers to site and then back. But now this guy gave an open small truck and said, take the workers, take these askaris to safeguard what? Equipment at night. Then bring all the other about 14 workers using this open truck. So the open truck what? Overturned. So we saw you who diverted the what? The coaster. You are the what? The problem. So we discussed the draft root cause analysis report together with the bank, and our recommendation was you should be eliminated from the what? From the contract. The consultant and the contractor tried to say, no, this is a first offense, maybe let's exonerate him. I said, no. And the good thing, the team at the bank was what? Was supportive. So we asked the contractor, can you please get out this guy? Because he is diverting from what is supposed to be. If there is a coaster to transport workers, why do you deploy what? An open truck. And when that happened, the rest of the workers got to know that what? Things were not what? Were not simple, and they had to heed on to the task. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the comments. And okay, on the first point, just a quick reaction on when the system in place are weak, or a contractor is not supportive in providing the proper information. I mean, there are consultants that can jump in, and the bank can support with consultants, with the internal staff of the bank, providing internal reference. So that gap can be always fulfilled with people coming in with the right experience and having an independent assessment. Thank you also for the comments on the insurances. I fully agree that that's very important to be as a part always of our contract. So I think your points are very well made. Okay. I'm very glad that there is a lot of interest on this topic, and maybe we can have a separate discussion or more in-depth conversation on all of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and thank you so much for all of those questions, participants. At this point, we are not going according to the program, but we also want to make sure that we listen to everyone and have all of our questions answered. I want to propose that we have the USMID team come and make a presentation, and then we have roads and bridges, and then we have one session for Q&A for both teams, if that's okay. Is that okay? Am I hearing a yes as USMID walks to the front? Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by appreciating all the members at the Ministry of Lands who are here with us today for the work they are putting in on the safeguards. I also want to appreciate the Ministry of Water for donating to us staff, but also as the Ministry of Lands, I think we've donated to the Ministry of Water the person who presented Jonan, we gave to you to take to Ministry of Water. So thank you so much for that capacity sharing. So USMID is the Uganda Support to Municipal Infrastructure Development, and AF is additional financing. The additional financing is the extra 5 years, which was added on to the initial 5 years. Our program development objective is to enhance the institutional performance of program local governments for improved service delivery. So USMID is basically a capacity building program for local governments. We may be known for infrastructure, but our objective is to build capacity for improved service delivery. We are closing 12 months from today. Actually, 11 months from today is when the program is closing. December 2023, there will be no more USMID in Uganda. And the operations are in 33 local governments across the country where we run. So our activities are quite brief. Our major activity is to support each of the 33 participating local governments to implement an effective GRM. I want to underscore the fact that we are supporting 33 local governments to implement their GRM. So as a program at the ministry, we are not doing GRM, but we are supporting the local governments to implement their GRM. One of the key actions that we are going to undertake, and this one is arising from the recently concluded mission, which found out that there has been a bit of laxity in the way the local governments are managing. They may have realized the issues of capacity. And one of the issues that we are going to issue a circular to all participating local governments on the need to implement effective GRMs along with other safeguard requirements. This was a recommendation by the bank. And of course, the circular will be issued by the permanent secretary. Our second action is to conduct a GM refresher training for critical duty bearers. In the local government, our key persons who head the grievance committees, definitely, it is the chief administrative officer in the districts, and it is the town clerks in the municipalities and cities, along with the contract management team. They are mandated with the duty to oversee the GRM and to report back. Like the town clerk appoints the members on the GRM committees within the municipalities where we work. So this refresher training we're able to conduct, and we concluded it. Our third action as a ministry is to conduct follow-up visits of the trained personnel for continuous monitoring. We do monitoring on a monthly basis, but as you may note, at the ministry, we're a team of about 8 people for the 33 local governments. That's why I was keen to understand how the Ministry of Water has all these people who are doing the work, and at the Ministry of Lands, there are just about 8 people in charge of the 33 local government. But on a monthly basis, we're able to conduct monitoring visits to follow up on what was trained. We have developed a grievance redress mechanism, a handbook, which the governments use in implementing these actions. Can you please go down? Our action number 4 is to support local governments to undertake stakeholder engagements that popularize the GRM, such as community meetings and radio talk shows. Under the USMID program, we provide funds to the local governments through a capacity building grant, which they use to conduct all these activities. And within the contractors' budgets, we also provide money to undertake these engagements and to popularize the GRM. So the local governments have the mandate. They print their own materials, they print their own books, and they conduct their own meetings. Our job is to supervise and make sure that what they're doing is in compliance with the standards. And the action 5 there is that we compile monthly GRM reports, both from the local governments and those complaints received at the central level government. So even at the ministry, we have a committee we have a book where we receive grievances and complaints, especially like the ones which come from newspapers, the ones people write and report, the ones we see on social media. We take all those in, and as a ministry, it's our duty to actually respond and resolve and close them. Regarding the capacity of the local governments, USMID conducts annual assessments, and the local governments and grievance management is one of the conditions for the governments to access funds on an annual basis. So to be specific, you're supposed to have a CDO who is in charge of grievances, and you're supposed to have a grievance committee, and you're supposed to have monthly reports. So the annual assessment comes in and checks if you have these. In case you don't have them, the money you receive as a budget allocation is reduced, you're penalized. So the town clerk or the cow is quite critical to ensure that these staff are in place and that they're doing the work of these committees and grievances. So that is one of the checks to ensure that this is effective. Otherwise, thank you so much. I'm sure that, my name is Paul Ahura, and I came here with Margaret, with Charles, with Maria, with Doreen from the Ministry of Lands, and of course with Jonan, who we donated to. Any questions here? Oh, the second presentation. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My name is Rebecca Nabuchu. I come from UNRWA. We came with a very big team, and we had several projects to present on, but specifically we zeroed down to roads and bridges. That is Koboko Yumbe Moyo Road Project. Maybe to give you a preamble about the grievance redress mechanism in UNRWA. This came as a result of, some of you could be familiar with the Kamwenge incident that time. Yes, where we had issues. So some of the projects were suspended, and there were conditions that the agency had to fulfill. And one of them was the development of the grievance redress mechanism. And in the process, the World Bank came in to support UNRWA. We developed the grievance harmonized mechanism. This was completed in 2018. And this mechanism is at institutional, project, and community level. At institutional, we have the board, we have the top management, and then we have other managers down. Then project, remember we have very many projects, but all the different projects report to the institutional level. And then community is at the grassroots, whereby we use the community structures to manage grievances. So Koboko Yumbe Moyo Road Project is a project in the refugee hosting district. And please go up. And at the stage of grievance management, like I've said, all the projects report into this grievance system. So going to our action plans, according to the Koboko Yumbe Moyo project, we have to finalize the school concept notes. This is quite different. I've not heard about any project talk about it. Reason being, sometime in last year, we had the World Bank mission. Koboko Yumbe being in a refugee area, we have so many schools along the road. So there was a proposal or a recommendation to to establish committees in schools. So this is where it came about. We developed the school GMC concept, and where we are supposed to go down. That is our action plan, finalize the school concept note. We have the concept note. We are supposed to go down and then engage the schools, the local government, including the district education officers, the different NGOs in the area, to give us ideas, to introduce to them this concept, and also get their feedback regarding on our structure that we have. So that is one of our actions, and we hope to do this in February 2023, and we have risks or constraints that we see: budget cuts, competing demand, delayed resources. This should have been actually done this year, but because of budget cuts and we are constrained, we are not able to do this on time. So our planned actions is to plan early, follow up, and keep engaging. We don't get tired. We keep engaging, even we update the bank so that we can have this done. The responsible persons, we have the social development specialists, the sociologists, client care teams, and the communication experts. And we hope to get other actors involved, including the CDOs, probation, schools, and then institutions, NGOs, police along the road. The second action under the implementation of school GMCs is the establishment. After we have gone to consult, we shall come back and have a final concept. And it is this final concept that we shall introduce to our top management team, and then we go down and implement. And implementation, I think you can see still the challenges almost the same, and we hope to do that in March 2023. Still, we are anticipating budget cuts, constraints in facilitation, and fitting into the school programs. Planned or close planned solutions, still we plan to do it early, communicate to the local government early so that we can have this done. And after we have formed these grievance management committees in schools, we shall have a launch, because this is a new thing, or it's a new idea in the region, or even on our projects. We shall have a launch, we shall have media, we shall have kindly, okay, thank you. We shall have, we shall invite Ministry of Education and other actors, the local government, so that we popularize the school GMCs. Because the way we've organized this concept, yes, we have the local grievance management committees at community level, but the school GMCs will specifically work within schools, because there was a gap identified that as the community gather their grievances and report them to the structures at community, the schools probably don't have a chance, especially the young children, the young girls who might be susceptible to violence against children, sexual harassment and abuse. So we want to give them a chance to report their grievances on time and be managed on time. So during the launch, we shall invite different stakeholders. We shall do this in the 3 districts, including Koboko, Yumbe, and then Moyo. We shall print materials, t-shirts, and other items. I don't know if I'm going up or down. Someone help me. Okay, yeah, go down a bit after the launch and popularization. Yes, support and monitoring and follow-up. After we've formed these grievance management committees in schools, we also have a plan to support them, monitor on a quarterly basis, and follow up how they are doing, whether what we have formed is working, any challenges they have, and if we can do any remedial actions. Also, produce IEC materials. This will be specifically for school children, like T-shirts. We have posters for GBV and VAC, SIA, and all those materials portraying the different grievances that come along with construction of the road project. Activity 2, we have, this is still pre-construction, stakeholder engagement and consultation. We shall engage in selecting a representation for persons with disability from each grievance management committee. Like I earlier said, we have grievance management committees at community level. We don't have grievance management committees at sub-county nor at district. We tried this on one of the projects, but it didn't work out. But the way our structure works is that these community grievance management committees are trained on how to escalate their grievances. When a grievance needs a CDO, they know what to take to the CDO. When they need to go to the RDCs, they know what to take to the RDCs. What we actually do, we form up to town council, up to sub-county, not sub-county or town council GMC, but they are local community structures, but within those specific town councils, whereby we even have an event of introducing these committees to the district local leaders and to the sub-county local leaders, so that they know that in this village or in this cell or this particular position, we have these GMC members. We pin their names at the district, at the sub-counties, so that they know the structures that UNRWA works with. So one of the engagements is to engage on choosing a representative for persons with disability. Yes, we have a concern that people with disability should be represented at all levels, and they should be able to air out their issues. So we are selecting each from a committee. Our committee has 6 people. We have the 3 directly affected persons, then we have the secretary, mobilizer, and then the opinion leader. So from these 6, we shall select a representative of people with disability, and we shall popularize this so that people with disability know that when you have an issue, we are specifically reporting to this person. It doesn't, of course, refuse them to report to other people, but for persons to directly register grievances for PWDs, we shall select an individual to represent their issues from all the committees. We have 27 committees along the whole project, and we shall have 1 representative per committee. Still with issues of GBV and violence against children or SIA, we are going to select still a representative from each committee to specifically register issues regarding violence against children, GBV, and then those related issues. So we shall go down and select the person and then inform the PWDs, because they are very organized. There are unions at each district, and we've engaged these unions, and they are aware. They need to know who is our focal person regarding grievance management. Then the other issue is grievance management regarding additional compensation for Modipo. This was project specific, the reason why you see that. We had an issue of undervaluation, and Modipo is Moyo District persons with disability. So it is a union for disability. They have a structure which is affected by the project, and this structure has to be compensated. Part of the money was compensated, but they logged in a complaint, which complaint has been reassessed, and then they are going to be added more money. So our structure works like that. Even if you think you're undervalued, you log in a complaint, your complaint is reviewed, assessed, and then we provide a solution if possible. If it is not possible, still we inform you. So under the MODIPU, we shall go back and then reassess, engage, and then compensate. The challenges we find, because we work with the achievement government valuers, sometimes the reports delay. We call them supplementary reports. That means that issue has to go into the supplementary reports. Those are the constraints we expect, facilitation, and also fatigue, because we've over-engaged these people. Sometimes they're like, why don't you pay us and we end this? But you know, it goes through a process. You also can't decide alone, but we work with other ministries. So we also have, we are going to conduct general stakeholder engagements on project progress and grievance management. So this comes in a way like the general grievance management, whereby we have the grievance management committees on ground. We have a team that collects those grievances in all aspects: compensation, environment, social, and safety. So we have a team that collects those grievances from the committees. When they collect those grievances, they come and log them into the GEMS. We call it General Inquiry and Grievance Management System. So when we log into those grievances, they are escalated to the project teams. Each project team has different technical persons. So the different technical persons works on that grievance, gives feedback to the person who has escalated, then the feedback goes back to the complainant. Some of these grievances go through a process because some of them need to be investigated, verified, so we don't have really sometimes specific timelines of responding to these grievances. But that process works in a way that at least we keep updating you. When your issue is logged into the system, the GEMS, you're given feedback, a notification as a complainant that your issue has been received, it is being worked on. At each stage that we reach, you're notified until resolution. Even on our website, we have a contact us form whereby people have different avenues of logging in their grievances on the website, through those GEMSs, the toll-free lines, and other different avenues. So we have also procurement of items for communication, information, and dissemination. This we anticipate still budget allocation issues, but we shall not get tired. We shall plan early and also try to wait, because we have a consultant that is being procured to support on livelihood and vulnerability. So we hope to at least to work with that consultant to produce some of these items for our grievance management committees. Then activity 3, construction stage, we have introduction of the E&S teams. You know, Koboko has so many individual consultants that are coming on board. So we shall introduce these individual consultants. We shall also introduce the contractor and the supervision team, or the supervising engineer, to the grievance management committees and the project communities. That is also an activity that we plan. So we shall mobilize the committees, the communities, the local leaders, set dates, and then engage with the communities, introduce the different teams, and thereafter we shall monitor how the performance of the grievance management committees work. We shall also provide refresher trainings, because that will be now very active work. As we are now, the construction has not yet started. We anticipate next year, early next year. So we shall, the committees will be more, they're active now, but they'll be more active. They're active because we are into land acquisition, and there are still a lot of issues that we are managing. Thank you. Unless my colleagues have anything to supplement.
Thanks, Becky, for having taken us through an elaborate way of how our grievance management system works. My addition is something simple, not simple, but something, I will call it something new. Most of our grievance management systems, it's one system. Most of our grievance management committees within our grievance management system have mainly been dealing with the grievances that arise due to impacts of construction works. But of recent, particularly with this particular project, KYM, and because of the sensitivity within which the project area is, we are advised that we are supposed to include within our GRM the SEA and JBV concerns to be managed or to be addressed at the grievance management committee level. That is particularly for the concerns that may not come out through the school grievance management committees. So what we have provided for is to provide one grievance management committee member who will be trained on the survivor-centric approach so that if you have any issues of JBV and VAC, he can be able to confidentially be able to manage those issues. So in addition to the activity that we are planning for is the training of the grievance management committee focal persons for JBV and SEA. And I think that is something that we are also going to be rolling out in our future grievance management processes that we are setting up.
So we were told to stay away from the acronyms. Thank you, UNRWA, and not USMID, LANDS. Thank you. I want to ask actually both of you to come up for questions. Enid, will you be handling this? Rebecca? And then Isaac? The gentleman from Lands. Is it Isaac? Paul, please, I saw you challenging your Ministry of Water colleagues, asking whether there were questions or not. If you could come up and we can get feedback from the participants. It's not a context. It's not a contest. Paul can stand here, Rebecca can stand here, and then we can get feedback. Any questions? Yes, lots of them. Yeah. Yeah. So where do we start? We'll start here and then
there is a mic here.
Thank you very much, UNRWA and USMID, for the great presentations. Mine is just, I want to learn more from UNRWA. Because when you are presenting, you said when people have a grievance, let's say for compensation, and they are not happy with the compensation rates or the value, they are free to log in their complaints afresh. And my worry is if you allow that, wouldn't it like delay the project? Because I know there's a lot of bureaucracy. So won't it delay the project because everyone will feel like they've been undervalued? Thank you very much.
I think I have a mic here.
Where? Somebody has the mic, they can go ahead.
Thank you. I have one question. And arising from UNRWA's presentation, they talked about the Kamwenge Chenjojo incident. And it reminds me that when you open any project appraisal document of a bank-funded project, you will see what is called the grievance redress service. And I think somewhere again, either in the ESCP, Environment and Social Commitment Plan, especially in relation to GBV, you will see DAP, that is the dispute adjudication, avoidance or adjudication board. So I want to understand the relationship between this and the GRMs. And I also mentioned that in the recent meeting, we're negotiating for a new project under our ministry. And the Attorney General argued that as a country, we have adequate mechanisms of addressing grievances as a country. But the bank said the GRS system is something that is a standard worldwide and cannot be touched. So I think it would be good for us to really understand the relationships between these, say that at what level does the GRS come in, at what level does the GRMs in country systems end? Thank you.
I have the mic, Christine. Thank you, gentleman and lady. My first question goes to the gentleman from lands. What happens to these grievous redress mechanism after the project has closed? Are they able to sustain themselves and continue? And I ask this in the spirit that wherever we would go to local governments, they would say, we have the USMID GRC. They call them for USMID. They have not owned them. That is one of them. Now, for the lady, UNRWA, the guidance that is current given to the local governments through the guidelines that I had earlier alluded to, the social safety and health guidelines from Ministry of Gender, they have 4 GRCs. 1 at project level, 2 at community or village level, 3 at sub-county level, 4 at district level. And all the people you mentioned, the school management GRC, are in a way mainly included in the one at the district level. So from your presentation, I was wondering, how is it going to work out? Won't it be duplication? Won't we have continuous fatigue? Because my experience with working at that level is that you'll find the same persons, same people. You'll find him in all the committees that exist, and that has been a continuous complaint. And still relatedly, in your submission, you said the reason why you formed the school management grievance mechanisms is because there were many schools. My question in that regard, couldn't these other existing GRCs handle the grievances? Was it the aspect of time that there was no response, or is it the issue of reporting? So many questions that come in terms of forming that. For me, my issue is like the district level committee has school management committees, representative has PTAs, has all those subject expertise like the DEO, name it. So I feel like there's some level of the same people appearing in also those ones. Thank you.
I have the mic, but I think the bigger part of my question has already been asked, because I was looking at Yumbe, Koboko, Moyo, Ministry of Health. We have about 14 sites in the Western Nile, and 7 of them are in Yumbe. So when you are mentioning the GRC, I was looking at a scenario. Are we not going to really bring fatigue, as my colleague has said, to these teams? Because we are yet also to establish the same committees in those districts and at the project site level. So maybe we may need to probably sit as a team, UNRWA, Dr. Deep, and another project that has a component in a refugee host district. We harmonize and maybe come up with one GRC so that we can see how to streamline the funding and facilitation at that level, rather than duplicating, because each sector will go there, will have to establish a new one. Ministry of Health will go there, establish. Dr. Deep already has. I'm very sure even the Ministry of Water, if they go, they will also have one. So I think these 3 or 4, we can sit and probably maybe come up with one unified GRC that would handle all the grievances within that project area. Thank you.
I don't know whether the chair first allows a hand. Can I say something? Thank you very much. I listened very well to the three presenters. But the presentation from Ministry of Lands, is it Lands, where there is a youth-made program? Or is it what it is called? That one. It looked like it is most near. It's like the ministry's program is most near to most of, that is my opinion, to most of these initiatives that we are bringing on board. He was presenting, in my mind I was looking at, it was as if it's a specific project building grievances in all of the districts, overseeing grievances and therefore touching different sectors. That's why my question is like, is this sector specific to education, or you are building grievances to local governments to build grievances, to handle grievances for every sector? And therefore, if this is not the case, it runs to what we call him a precurrent speaker, or what has alluded to, that we are going to cause the fatigue. We had better pick out lessons of which systems have really worked best and have served. Then we integrate in and popularize this such that we don't have so much duplications. He has a lot that I think we can learn from if we pay attention to the detail of what they do.
Thank you very much. Mine is just seeking extra clarification of the bank, because the discussion on incidents was very interesting. But as far as you know, incidents are diverse. But this discussion concentrated on health, occupational health and safety. Some incidents are social, GBV, VAC, trafficking, significant damage to livelihoods. Others are environmental nature, serious contamination, serious degradation, and so on and so forth. But they discuss so much on health and safety. So my question, and they're also categorized, some are serious, others are severe. So my question is, especially my sister from Bolivia, probably La Paz, that's your capital. Now, Cheryl has done a lot of environmental damage. Is it true that you don't concentrate so much on those incidents? So that's extra clarification. I hope I made some sense. Do I? Not specifically, but to the bank again.
I think thank you all for your questions. Do we have any more? There's a hand.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, my colleagues. My name is Nancy, National Water and Sewerage Corporation. I've actually been listening a lot, and from the last presentation, there is a proposal I would love to bring on the table. And this goes back to our mother ministries. I think you people have a lot of work to do. You have to sit down, come up with something like a proposal, so that you give to the agencies that operate under you. You are the ones who can regulate us. Because already we are going to begin clashing in the field. I have my own grievance advisory committee, the other one has his own. So there is going to be a lot of tension in the field. Can our mother ministries come up with something uniform? That this, for instance, for us National Water, we are implementing the Karuma Glue project. In the grievance advisory committee team, the chairperson is going to be the RDC or the COW. Can it be uniform for those ones implementing other projects under Ministry of Lands and the rest? I think this will guide us so that we know there is a generic committee which constitute of the RDC, COW, CDO, blah, blah, blah. Then we shall choose technocrats basing on what we are implementing. If I am for Ministry of, if I am for National Water and Sewerage Corporation, I know that the district water officer is very important to be incorporated in my team. If you're for lands, if you're for roads, just like that, that is my opinion. Thank you very much.
I think
you.
there is. Hey, I'm just adding the voice. I wanted to say it earlier on. Ministry of Gender is supposed to spearhead this thing, since it's the mother ministry. And I think this is what we need to take on. Find a way of having a uniform, one ministry that is giving guidance to this. Otherwise, we are doing a lot of duplication, fatigue, and all these kind of things. So Ministry of Gender should come out to give us clear guidance in terms of the structure. If it's already there and there's a policy to that effect, then we are just adopt it and operationalize it. Otherwise, we are, yeah, that is me.
Thank you. Thank you, presenter. Mine goes to the presentation from UNRWA. You talked about having different grievance redress committees at school level. However, for sustainability purposes, I would request that we utilize the structures that are already within the schools, because we still have disciplinary structures at school level. And for example, as the education sector, when we are taking on projects, we still utilize those structures and only come up with GRCs, for example, on the contractor's side. But within the schools, we still retain the disciplinary committees, and then they take on the different grievances. And then the head teacher can only represent at the contractor's side. Because as a sector, we also have clear reporting, referral, and response guidelines. So those guidelines are still followed at the different levels.
If I may come in, Christine, there's something that is coming up that is about harmonizing grievance redress committees. And my proposal to this is that we cannot have a cast in stone grievance redress committee. It depends on, one, the community you're working in. It depends on the setup of the project. It depends on a number of things. So probably at the district level, we can try to have a unified grievance redress committee at that level. But going down, and given the fact that even some of the projects are not implementing directly through the local governments, a number of projects are not doing that. So we cannot harmonize at that level if some of these projects are not implementing through the local governments. Now, you cannot say that for local grievance committees or the site level grievance committees, because these are different issues, different communities. For instance, when you go to communities where you have refugees, where you have indigenous people, where you have peculiar setups, where you may need actually to use, like she has said, existing structures. Because through the grievance redress system that you're putting up, we allow for the existing structures to work. Sometimes they could be traditional structures where you're working and they can actually manage very well. I remember in the project where we were working in the Karamoja region, they had a local traditional grievance redress system where they can handle some of those things without even the district coming in. They have their way of managing things. And if it is about theft and so on, they can retrieve what was stolen and so on. So what I'm saying is that, yes, the proposal is there that we can have a harmonized something, a prototype, but it cannot go up to the local level. It cannot be that we have harmonized. So I'm thinking that at that level, every sub-project can have their own, whether it is water, education, and so on, in schools and so on. It can be at that level, and incorporating people that can be on those committees as regards to the setting and the issues that we are handling. So I insist that, yes, There's a proposal. You know, for a long time we've been trying and crying about Minister of Gender and so on, but we are not going to wait for gender to come on board to do some of these things. They will find us on the way as we are doing some of these things if they are coming. But they have the mandate to do some of these things. And they are helping us at that level where the labor officers are coming in, the probation and social welfare officers in the districts are coming in and so on. But at the ministerial level, I think the strength is minimal. So that's my take on that harmonization thing. Thanks.
I wanted to add my voice to the last speaker regarding the harmonization. Whereas we appreciate the harmonization and actually would be the best way to go, but we have to be mindful, like has rightly said, of how we are setting up this grievance and redress system. In my understanding, the purpose of setting up the system is to ensure that the person who is affected down there, the PAP, okay, the project affected person, whatever project you're dealing with, has his voice being raised, has his grievance or his complaint addressed, listened to, and addressed. And I think what would help us to have that concern addressed is not necessarily setting up the structure. Because when we look at the role of the sub-county and district, I'm looking at the UNRWA projects in particular. If you're looking at the role of the districts and the sub-county in redressing these grievances, I think, I don't want to be misunderstood, but I think it's minimal. Because most of those grievances are raised out of compensation, they are raised out of the impacts of the project. Either you haven't given access, either you haven't managed the accidents, you haven't managed maybe the dust on the road, all those other associated grievances. And the role of the district in resolving these grievances may not be much, because these grievances usually, they need to be addressed by the contractor, they need to be addressed, maybe some of them by UNRWA itself, and I would believe what is important is for those grievances to be escalated to the levels where they can be addressed, and not necessarily through the structures. So we should also be mindful of that when you're talking with the harmonization. Okay, there are projects which are being implemented through the local government structures. Maybe those ones, you can consider of having a harmonized system. That is my take. And I would think it's important that we bear that in mind as we are looking for solutions to address this duplication of roles and responsibilities.
You know, we have had so many things. If you remember, those of us who have lived for some time, gender issues earlier on in the earlier days in the ministries, it wasn't there. It wasn't an issue that we could talk about. But right now, all ministries have embraced gender. Am I right? But you know, it began with a lot of these arguments we are having. And this is something we can really use and leverage existing systems, existing structures to help us mainstream these grievance mechanism systems. There is no way you're going to say we have the spirit of helping the people on the ground who are affected when we are not regularizing it or regulating it as a government. You must regulate it by having it harmonized through a particular ministry and systems and facilitate it. Let's have the spirit of having it mainstreamed and through government systems, not through whoever wishes. this is something today we are, of course, talking about projects that are World Bank funded, but you remember there are also GOU, GOU what? Projects, and they are equally people who are affected by those things. What happens? So, I mean, anyway, whoever has an opinion can say, but it is very important to mainstream this thing.
Just from experience, we were implementing some project. Then I didn't know my boss wanted to contest as the area member of parliament. So we were supposed to constitute this grievance redress committee. The gentleman decides to put for me only his what? Campaign agents. Campaign agents. Whenever I want to have meetings, the committee is in the field looking for votes for my boss. So such a scenario, if at that level, local level, we are not regulated, how are we going to move forward?
Thank you. I think harmonization shouldn't be a problem. We have already been guided by the NDP3. There are already ministries that are contributing towards the same pillars, and they have already started working together. So with time, this will automatically be effected. Because I believe the projects introduced or are brought on board to support the achievement of the pillars for various ministries, contributing towards the same outcomes. So, for example, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Gender, we are already working together. We have systems, structures, that are really contributing towards the same, which is human capital development. So it shouldn't be a point of discussion. We have already been guided by the NDP3, only that some ministries are still working in silo, but if we go by the guidance of the NDP3, then all these issues of harmonizations will be solved. Thank you.
I think I wanted to interrupt, but let's have one more last, and then get back to Paul, who has patiently taken all of your questions. Paul, and then UNRWA. And then Jerome can come in.
Yeah, I like the experience you've shared about gender mainstreaming within the ministry structures, and I will share my experience as a part of the team that has been undertaking gender mainstreaming for the last 20 years. Basically, what Ministry of Gender did was to develop a gender policy with clear actions for the various MDAs or players or stakeholders. And one of the actions in there was that sectors and other agencies should develop sector-specific guidelines. So I think all they can do is to provide a general guideline. But to say you are going to have one that caters for all issues all over sectors, I think that is impossible. Let the sectors come up with specific guidelines that are appropriate to the conditions, the people they serve, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Mine is one. My thinking is that GRM is already considered by government systems. I'm aware that the government has the court system. It has also the LOC systems, which are supposed to handle most of these grievances. But I'm also aware that why we are focusing on project GRM is that the government systems are clogged, or maybe they are not working efficiently. So for us to go back and say that let us have a unified GRM system for government ministries or for all projects, we shall be going back to the clogged systems of the court systems and so on. Yet when we are preparing the GRM, we say that we have the different stages. And the court system is one of the last stage of solving these grievances. Meaning that if the project fails, now you go to court. And when you go to court, now court determines when that grievance will be resolved. Some of my colleagues here in UNRWA, they know how long they take in court to resolve a land issue, and others. But I think it is very important for every project to have its own GRM system and to review the existing institutional framework and see which areas to use, and if there are inadequacies or lack of capacity somewhere, within the project you find the adequate resources to implement your GRM. But if we are to propose and go back to a uniform GRM system for all projects, it will not work. And unfortunately, the one who was telling us about the reporting system has gone out, but we are even required to report some of these issues. Now, who will report? And you will be reporting to who? Because even from the bank, I understand different staff, TTLs work on different projects. So even the reporting system will become very difficult. So in my opinion, we shouldn't waste the time thinking of harmonizing the GRM system for the different ministries or projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For my presentation, I picked up 2 questions, and I want to give a little background that USMID is the funding instrument is a program for results. The program for results means that when the project appraisal was done by the bank, they found that the government systems are appropriate to address the needs of the World Bank, of course with a few improvements. And those improvements is where is what we work on with the local governments. So what happens to GRMs after project closure? We fund the GRMs fine through the capacity building grant, which we give to the local governments. However, when Ministry of Finance is transferring money to the local governments, for the capacity building grant, which is in USMID entities, it is at the same level with other local governments that are at the same level of that particular municipality. It doesn't change. What changes is the grant we give for infrastructure development. In the USMID local government, that will be higher, but the grant for staffing and operational costs, it is the same. In USMID local governments, there is not a higher number of staff than in other local governments. So that grant is the same. So even when USMID withdraws, the government of Uganda will continue to provide that same amount of money as it is giving to the other local governments. So that will continue. So under USMID, we don't have a special person we have hired to be a grievance focal person. It is the town clerk who is already there, who is paid by the government and getting no extra money. So even in the event that USMID goes away, the government will continue to hire a town clerk for that particular place. So it is not different, it shall continue to happen. Another question was, Ministry of Lands seems to be, under USMID, seems to be doing a grievance system for the entire district or country. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a capacity building program for the local governments. Actually, if you look at the reports that we receive of grievances, we categorize that these are USMID related and these are non-USMID related. The report covers all grievances across because it is capacity building. So the town clerk, when they are reporting, USMID does roads, they are into markets, they are into enhancing local revenue, they are into doing taxi parks and all other things. So these people work across all those sectors. So when they're preparing their grievance reports at the end of the month, we only categorize. We ask them, kindly let us know which ones are USMID related, let us know which ones are not USMID related. And in the follow-up, we want to ensure that everything is resolved, whether USMID related or non-USMID related, because it is one government. So ideally, I would say it is a government, it's a direct government program, as opposed to an independent project that is working on the World Bank. So the benefits that accrue are supposed to apply across the entire government system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll answer like two, and then my colleague will handle the rest. There was a question of undervaluation. Why do we allow people to log in complaints of undervaluation? Yes, in the system of grievance management, everyone is free to complain. So when they complain, we listen to them. These grievances are registered. We look through them. The valuers or surveyors verify the grievances. You might actually find it was a real complaint, like it was true. Maybe the person was omitted. Maybe there was an error. Error is to man, so we can't rule it out. So if we find there was really an error, so a process is done, an assessment is done, a reassessment, and then the person is considered. And then maybe additional money is added, just like I've just shared the experience of Moyo Koboko, the Modipo structure, whereby maybe the first valuation considered just an angle, a part of the structure to revalue, to value, and yet the whole structure was being what? Affected. So when you come back and look at those errors, you might find sometimes they are real. So we don't eliminate any complaints, we handle all complaints accordingly, verify. If the person needs to be revalued, it is done, and if it is not, then they are advised. If they really insist, after going through our grievance system and we cannot handle them, we advise them to bring their private valuers. And remember, even the private valuer has to have an approved report from the chief government valuer. So all the systems allow complaints. We don't rule it out. And the other issue is about the school GMCs. The reason why we are we've not yet established the school GMCs, but we have a concept note. And this concept note is under review. We are going on ground to engage local government. We have the district education officers, we have the CDOs, we have the probation, we have the schools. We are aware there are structures in schools already. That is the reason why we go down to consult, that we have this proposal. How do you see? If they inform us, if the structures are working and we can work with them, we can harmonize. If they're not working, they advise us otherwise. We have not yet established, but we are going on ground to consult on what do they have. Because when we look at schools, we have primary, secondary, and institutions. Do they all have these structures? We want to find out what is on ground, and then we harmonize with what we have in our concept note, and then we implement a standard harmonized structure. The reason is we have, these are refugee areas, and during road construction, very many girls, and then sometimes they abused, or different issues, and they might not feel confident to report to the local community grievance committees. That is the reason we want to give them a chance maybe to report to their peers. And we are not looking at these structures as being composed of only technical people or what, but we're also looking at children or students, P6 and above. We can have them on a committee. And also secondary, these are mature, they can register grievances, and also institutions within their schools, but not specifically that maybe it has to be only the head teacher, or no, it has to be a composition of both the children or the pupils and then the administration. Thank you. Let my colleague answer the rest.
I think I have one issue to respond to, but I also don't think I'm the right authority to respond to it. That was a concern raised by one of our colleagues on the relationship between the DAB and the grievance redress mechanism that we are talking about. I will give what I think, in my opinion, but maybe somebody from the bank can add on to what I have shared. Like you've rightly said, the coming into existence of the DAB was a result of what happened on one of the road projects, which was Fort Potro Kamwenge. I think after a thorough assessment of what could have contributed towards inadequate management of the social grievances, particularly the ones associated with JBV and VAC, was the fact that there wasn't a mechanism in place which would be able to support the process for the project not to escalate to the level it escalated. And I think one of the factors that was established was the fact that at the procurement stage, and I think actually at the time of project inception and the preparation of the project appraisal document, these aspects were not given adequate attention that they required. So the procurement that was undertaken then and the contract that was signed with the contractor did not have protection clauses that would enable the implementation of the JBV VAC or management of JBV VAC grievances and addressing the JBV VAC impacts. So I think the bank came up with a proposal on how can this process be managed better. And I think that's why they improved the bidding documents, and that's why they improved the contract documents. And it's within the procurement process that they have provided for the dispute, the DAB, I'll use it in short, the acronym of dispute adjudication and dispute management. So I'm saying that to me, I'm looking at this as a grievance resolution mechanism at the higher level between the contractor and the entity that will have contracted the contractor. The intricacies of whether that can work or not, I think the bank will also discuss, will add on and support. But the way I'm looking at it is that is a grievance redress mechanism between the contractor and the client, which hasn't been in existence before, and the contractors have always been taking advantage of that. When you request them to implement certain social safeguard requirements, particularly the ones associated with JBV and SEIA. SEIA is social exploitation and abuse. They have always been, I will use the word hiding, behind the contract, that this is not provided for within the contract. This was not a requirement during the bidding process. So we improved the bidding process to ensure that these requirements are provided for. But also the bank and of course the implementing entities are putting in place a provision that in the event that you don't agree on whether the contract has implemented what was provided for within the contract, then you can go to the DAB as a grievance management or a grievance redress mechanism. So that's how I'm looking at it. It's not at the lower level, but the grievances, of course, will originate from the lower level. They will be raised by the community members or by the project affected persons, and then they raised to the level where they reported to the entity and of course to the bank, and then where the two don't agree and come to a resolution, then you have this board which comes in as a grievance redress mechanism. I think I will ask the bank to assist and add on. That's my understanding of it.
Enid, I think you have explained it very well. The gentleman at the next table said it's loud and clear. So the DAB is supposed to resolve issues between the contractor and the client. It's supposed to address those issues. But we also have a new contractor disqualification mechanism on GBV, ACA, and SH, and that comes under procurement requirements. We have noted that perhaps in the next engagement, we will have a section, a training on what is required on E&S, SEA and GBV in contract documents and at bidding stages. The other issue I wanted to talk about was the GRS, Grievance Redress Service. So in the PAD, there is an option for a grievance redress for affected persons to go directly to the grievance redress service. But what we would like is the GRMs to be accessible to all of the PAPs and that they don't have to go through other avenues to be heard. So that is the bank's way of being at the grassroots and saying we are open to receive complaints. But the ideal situation would be for all complaints, all questions to go through the GRMs. Normally when somebody goes to the GRS, then the inspection panel gets involved. And this is something, these workshops actually are meant to try and reduce the instance of inspection panels and to make sure that we have GRMs on the ground that are effective enough for grievances not to escalate to that level. I would like to hand it over to Annette now to give feedback on the last two presentations that we had, and then we will move to next steps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe just to add on to the GRS, even if a complaint is sent there, they still come back to the project to address the complaint. Yeah, this is because the project is the one implementing and providing the service, or is the duty bearer. So, and when we look at where we started, the importance of a GRM, it's to build trust with the citizens. So when you open yourself up, you're also allowing that ownership. Beyond, once you've implemented your project, communities will continue to engage. And it also built your legitimacy as the duty bearer. So there are all those factors to consider. The GRS is, maybe it should be an escalation when the project is not addressing the complaints. So on the last two presentations, let me start with the lands one. I think this would be a good example of building building client capacity and also building country systems for grievances beyond the life of a project, so that if they're strong enough, communities have a way to engage on service delivery at the local level, and they can use those systems. And I'm sure that now within a local authority, the way it should work is that once they receive a grievance, it's directed to the appropriate sector or whoever is handling that. Maybe just on your, just some corrective actions on your action plan. You talk about supporting the local governments to undertake stakeholder engagement that popularize the GRM, such as community meetings and radio talk shows. You need to at least define that support. Is it the financial support, or what kind of support is that? At the same time, you've not given any risks or constraints. I'm sure there are, and what the planned, for instance, if it's just the financial, do you have late disbursements? How do you address? How do you mitigate those? So let's see a bit more around the risks and the constraints, but otherwise it's good. I think you've factored in the costs, except for the last two. Seems there may be no cost to this for the ministry. You need to address that. Then for the roads. I see some budget figures are lumped together, and it would be useful to know. It would be useful to disaggregate. So, for instance, when you talk about engaging in selecting a representative for the disability from each GRC, you've combined that with the GRM management regarding additional compensation. Would like to know, what is the cost of engaging in selecting a representative? Is there a cost to that, or there is none? If it's zero, just write zero. Then you break that down so that we know what each prior action costs.
The other question I had in regard to this, and maybe you'll respond to it, is, excuse me, are these costs already factored in, or their projections? That, as in, are they budgeted already? Are they costed, and the funds are available? Because also you talk about budget cuts, competing demands. So had you previously budgeted for these resources, and they're available for your use, and you suspect that the budget cuts are because there might be other priorities, and so these are taken from the current budget that you have and diverted elsewhere. So you need to be a bit clear on that. But again, this one had a very good example of clear timelines by when you want to accomplish those activities. So I hope the other colleagues would take note of that. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop there for now. Maybe you can respond on the issue of the costs.
We appreciate the concern that has been raised regarding the financing constraints that we have raised. The challenge that we have put across is a challenge that has affected the whole country, particularly regarding this financial year. Because these activities that we need to undertake into the communities need to be supported by the project implementation unit, which is based at the headquarters. And that unit needs to be facilitated to go out into the field and undertake those activities. So we all know that at the beginning of this financial year, the government was faced with financial constraints, which affected all MDAs, not excluding this implementing agency. So we hope that with the improved conditions of government in terms of financing, the teams will be facilitated to be able to undertake those activities. There are some of the activities that are being financed by the bank directly or by the loan, but even with the loan, as we talk now for this particular project, the disbursement hasn't yet commenced. So in a way, that is affecting the project. We hope that when the disbursement commences and the government financing improves, then this constraint will be no more.
Thank you, Enid. Maybe to add on, you asked about lumping the budget for grievance management for Modipo, and then the other activity of selecting specific representatives for people with disabilities. Yes, we hope to undertake this activity at once, and that budget involves facilitation. When we go out to the field, we have mobilizers, people who help us mobilize the communities that we need to engage, even the grievance management committees. In most cases, we move them out of their area of jurisdiction. And during our training, we tell them, when we move you out of your village, remember sometimes we cluster them. When we cluster, they come and converge at a sub-county. They incur a cost. Someone talked about a border. So at least you will not expect them to put in their own money to take a border and then to come for your meeting. Just so we factor in those issues. That is why we put in a cost. That at least they will take a border. They will need a refreshment. This is not given in terms of cash, but it is e-cash, electronic. This is a government system that was adopted, but it also has its own problems. Because you put in e-cash a request, you take a year or 6 months, and people have not received this small amount of money. So there are big challenges we have with this system. I don't know about other agencies. Maybe for them, they still give cash, but we really suffer. And when you go back, these people don't want to look at you. Eh? They are demoralized. They say, we are tired of signing. You ever come here, you make us sign, you make us mobilize, we spend our time, you never come back. Again, you have come back, and you need to work with us without even a soda. They even tell you, you as whole, you from UNRWA, no, aren't you now going to have lunch? so you've made us sit here for nothing, and you've not given us even that small amount. So it is really a big challenge. That's why sometimes we lump these activities, and we keep apologizing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of the presentations and all of the questions, answers, sharing of experiences. They say that time flies when you're talking about GRMs, and I think that all of you will agree with me. In terms of next steps, we will give you comments for those of you who have given us your GRM assessment, your GRM action plans. We will give you comments, and then we would like you to respond. Annette, I think we will give them comments, say, tomorrow, and then we would like to get feedback by the 19th of December, and then you can actually adapt the final the final plans after we have given you comments. We still want to encourage the PIUs that are still doing the assessments to complete the assessments and move on to creation of GRM action plans and share with us. We're here to consult and work with you. And as you submit your action plans, kindly suggest other issues that you would like us to discuss as we work towards having better GRMs. I think that is what we have in terms of next steps. Unless anybody wants to ask or add anything, I want to invite you to have lunch with us, and let's talk a bit more about GRMs. Thank you.
Colleagues, this is an AOB. Thank you so much for participating. I think this was so important and so informative for all of us. Personally, my eyes have been opened more on GRMs, and I look forward to supporting the team as well. And also going back to the fields, I've learned a lot. And I think some of the things that we shared amongst the IFPA CD and the Dr. Deep teams were so helpful. I just hope that this can actually materialize, and then we will see the benefits of harmonizing, because this is the elephant today that we've been addressing today. And we look forward to more engagements. Just on another note, we are doing something together still alongside the social and environmental team. We want to bring together the CSOs and the NGOs that we work with, the ones that are based in the field and the ones that are in the headquarters. But we are going through you, because you know the people you're working with. Some of you may have received an email from me requesting you to share with me. I'm kindly requesting, because we are organizing a forum which is just like this, we are just waiting to put together so that we can have this forum. We want to bring them on board, help them know what we are doing, things like this, what is E&S, what are the GRMs, how are we working, and what the bank does. Because we realize that so many people out there do not actually know what the World Bank does. So this is what we are doing. So that email that I sent to you, I'm going to write my email here so that you can kindly help me and share with me those NGOs that you're working with and the CSOs. I'll be glad to receive. Thank you. I'm just going to pull this one here and put my email address and the details that we need, because we need the contact, the name, at least people who do monitoring, people who are working on the social and environment, people who are doing coordinators of the projects. Those are people that we need to meet. And then some people are called programs directors, people like those. Thank you so much. Janet, over to you.
Thank you very much, Daphne. Our late lunch is going to be just down there. We'll just walk out of the door and go to your left. That's where we are going to have our lunch from. Enjoy it, and looking forward to having such meetings again. We are really very grateful that the participation has been very good. So when we send you another invitation, please respond to the invitation by confirming your participation. Otherwise, we are very grateful. Thank you.
Colleagues, for those who can just take a photo of my email address, just share with me the NGOs that you're working with, the NGOs, CSOs that you're working with, implementing the